Good morning. Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you can learn to make more money in less time and have more fun. Now, today I'm excited. We got a guy, Greg Hayne from Greg, I did mess up the first time, Greg Hayne Coaching Group. And he's going to tell us a little bit about peer groups, right? Because that's everybody should be a member of, and not a lot of people are good at it. So, Greg, tell them about what you do and how you do it.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for inviting me. So I organize and facilitate peer groups. And for me, my area of expertise has been commercial roofing. So all of these groups are for commercial roofing contractors. Some do residential work, and that does come up, but basically these are commercial groups. But we group contractors so they're non-competing, so that they're of similar size and focus, because a guy at $1 million can't help a guy at 15, and the guy at 15 can't help a guy at 1, nearly as much as you might think. So it's important for us, the sizes to be similar. And we've got groups where we've had people that have had revenue of, I had one group which there were 7 contractors, and they had $600 million worth of revenue. Mm-hmm. So huge contractors. What we do in these groups is, I like to say, you don't have to figure this stuff out for yourself anymore. Somebody else sitting there, everybody sitting there understands your problem. They may not have it anymore, but they understand it. Okay. And it may be that they already know how to solve it. Do this, do this, do this. More often the case is that they know how to solve it and you know how to solve it, but you're not willing to solve it. And then we start to dig as to, okay, what's really going on here?
So give me an example of somewhere that the guy knew the answer but wasn't willing to do the answer. That sounds like a good example.
Sure. So an example would be you have a roofing contractor whose wife is the service manager, and she is horrible, and it is costing him lots and lots of money in lost revenue.
Okay. And
he understands that, but he's married to her. Okay.
Literally.
Yes. And he's not willing to have, he either is not willing to have the uncomfortable conversation, or he's willing to have it, but he knows he doesn't know how to do it because he doesn't have the emotional intelligence. Or who knows, but there's all sorts of factors that come into why that could be the case. And everybody listening to this could appreciate that. Oh, if my spouse was sitting there. Oh,
well, it's like the whole fear thing. Like, well, a divorce is more expensive than having a bad manager or something like that. I mean, it's like some really weird.
Well, and it doesn't have to be divorce, but, and then a lot of times they don't really appreciate how bad that person's performance really is. And by the way, it almost always revolves about people and performance. It almost always is about people. Wrong people that are in the wrong seat. They're being asked to do things that they're not good at, or people that create toxicity in your work culture.
Right.
Okay. They may be really good at doing their job, but they are raging a-holes.
Well, I know. I mean, when we do a lot of recruiting, there's the corporate value fit as well as the performance fit, and I believe the corporate value fit is more important than performance fit.
Yeah,
because you can have somebody who's a great performer, but he can destroy your organization by messing up the values for everybody, like a team, right?
Yes, absolutely. There is a friend of mine that is let's call him a consultant in the industry, and he bought out a complementary firm. So he didn't buy more of what he did. He bought somebody that did something similar. I'm heavily disguising this. All right. Okay. And they put a woman in charge of this new company, and all of the good old boys that had all the technical knowledge in this other company resisted and undermined this lady who was very competent. Okay. And so they walked in and they fired him one day. And And everybody in the office says, what are you doing? They're the only ones that know everything about X, the thing that they do. And then one person said, well, I could do this part. And somebody said, I could do that part. And within 2 weeks, the company was running better than it ever had because they got rid of the toxicity.
Right.
And it's always best to hire. It re-endorses. You always want to hire people with batteries already included.
Right.
Don't hire on potential. Assume that this person is as good as they're ever going to get. Okay. And then coach them up. That's ideal.
Right. And always hire, it's who they are is more important than what they know, right? I mean, that's the fundamental thing. So let's talk about peer groups. So how do you, I think peer groups are great, but people go, well, I don't want to tell my like contractors are famous for it. They're all closed-minded. Like, I don't want to share my stuff, either my good stuff or my bad stuff, right? I don't want to share my good stuff because they might steal it. I don't want to share my bad stuff because it makes me look bad. So how do you get guys over that, or ladies over that kind of fear of joining a group?
Well, first of all, I don't let anybody in. Okay. I have conversations with people and I ask questions, and if they don't answer the questions right, I'm not going to put them in. Okay. But to speak to your point, these people need to get over themselves. Everybody's got problems. Probably everybody in that group's got the same problems you have. Okay. Get over yourself. Okay. Do you want to get better, or do you want to continue to live with it? And the people that join the peer groups want to get better. Okay. But what I find is, in every group I've ever had, that people are so relieved to be in a group where people understand that they metaphorically drop their pants and away we go right out of the chute. They air all their dirty laundry right away. That's cool. So, well, we can't fix it right away.
No. So Greg, how does somebody find a peer group? There's Bill or 20, there's different peer groups out there. How do they find one? How do they find the right one? And one that knows that works for them. And then sometimes how they justify the cost, going, well, I have to fly to Delaware. Usually, sometimes they fly around to see different people and that kind of thing. And they go, wow, I don't know if I've got time to do that. Right. So it's like the number one, people don't take time management. It's no time. Same kind of thing to me.
So there's more than one question there. All right. Okay. So I have what is called an industry specific type of peer group. There are also peer groups that are not industry specific. The best known of these is called Vistage, Vistage, Vistage.com. And Vistage is found in most major cities. The person that organizes and facilitates these are known as chairs. And a Vistage chair will put together a vetted group, and you will not be with your competitor. If you're a commercial roofing contractor, you may be with a plumber, you may be with an insurance salesman, you may be with an auto dealer, you may be with an office supply people. All different. And what his role is to bring you together once a month and meet in person for a day. And you'll spend half a day doing with a guest speaker, and then you'll spend a half a day processing issues. My groups, we meet only three times a year. They are in person. Almost everybody's going to Florida in January. And so, yes, you have to get on an airplane, and you have to fly someplace, and you're going to be out of the office for a couple of days. And if you're a small contractor, $1 million contractor, or $2 million contractor, that's a challenge. Most of the contractors that are in my groups are at least 3 million. Okay. And some of them still have trouble getting, and the reason have trouble getting away is because they are stuck in the weeds. They are too busy, in my case, making sure the roofs get put on right. They need to find people that they can delegate and trust those roles to.
So then what about, I just can do it on Zoom. Do you think that works or not? I'm just curious.
So when the pandemic hit, all of our meetings went on Zoom, and there's nobody that thinks that's a good idea. First of all, in my meetings, we go out, we go out to dinner. We have an arrival night, so everybody flies in to wherever the location is. We all go out to dinner. We meet all day. We have lunch catered in. We go out to dinner that night. We meet the next day till noon. Okay. So the day and a half. So we have 2 offsite meetings, 1 catered lunch. Sometimes we either cater in breakfast, and half the value comes in the conversations that occur at the meals. So if you're doing a Zoom thing, it's too easy to be distracted. Your phone is ringing and you can kind of mute yourself and you can go try to solve a problem, missing stuff that's valuable. So there's no way that I think that you can do this with Zoom and have the full value of it. And none of my peer group members think it's a good idea. They all hate it.
So the quality of relationship has something to do with the method you're communicating, whether it's in person or in Zoom or on phone, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's hard to get that kind of energetic quality and that kind of quality of relationship unless you're actually in the room with the guy or girl.
Yeah. Now we will bring guest speakers in, and they may come in via Zoom. We've got an economist that's coming in that's going to talk about what the economy is going to be doing over the next year or two for one of the groups in January. But he'll come in video. Sometimes we'll bring in guest speakers, and they'll come in for a half a day, and we'll be doing stuff where we've got stuff written up on big notepads on walls and all sorts of things like that. You can't do that effectively in a virtual setting.
Right.
We do virtual, and then we have people that, oh, my uncle died. I got to go to the funeral. Can I come to the meeting virtually so that I can attend? Yeah. Okay, fine. We'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you find, talking to the people, the audience here, what is the biggest value of a peer group in belonging to one? What do you think? Give me 2 or 3 things you think that create huge value.
Number one, you're going to discover that there are people out there that are a whole lot better than you and that are glad to help you get better.
Okay.
Number two, you're going to get exposed to completely different ways of thinking about your business that are potentially very, very helpful. The greatest value that I see does not come from the technical conversations about how do we get, in our case, how do we get the roof put on faster, or how do we build a better service department? Those are technical things. It's all the other stuff. It's the mindset. Most contractors have fixed mindsets. They want to do it, the roofing industry especially, they want to do the same thing the way they did it 10 years ago. And they're going to be swallowed up and passed by people that are doing it in new, inventive ways. Here's an example. I had a contractor in one of my peer groups. He has revenue of less than $10 million a year. I had a coaching call with him in March, and he called me in October. He said, Greg, I just wanted you to know you made a suggestion in that conference and that meeting we had. And he said, our net profit went up $1 million as a result of me taking your suggestion. I said, what was it? Because I don't.
Oh, that's exciting. What was it? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this particular individual needed to get out of the office and be the chief salesman because he is a very, very good salesman, but he's the president of the company. I said, he found somebody else to run the company operationally, and he goes out and sells. He is personable. He is effective. He knows how to sell. And so he went out and sold a bunch of work.
Now, that's an exciting story. Question, can you say, well, I remember a statement. I think the quality of someone's business depends on the quality of their relationships. And my thought is, if you have quality relationships with peers in your industry, there's no better way to get your business better.
I agree that that's essential. I think there's another component. I think everybody needs a coach.
Okay.
A coach. Now, when I'm talking about coaching, I'm talking about someone that's not telling you what to do. That's a consultant. When I'm talking about a coach, I am talking about someone that asks you difficult questions that are difficult for you to answer, that make you uncomfortable. Oh, tell me more about that. And just why is it that you won't move your wife out of the service department role? And I mean, they start to dig, and the fundamental tenet of coaching is that everyone already has, no one's broken. that everybody already has the resources they need. They just need help getting them out. And the contractors in my groups that have coaches are growing a lot faster than the contractors that continue to try to figure out things for themselves. Inevitably.
Right.
Inevitably.
I mean, any athlete, anybody in any has a coach, right? I mean, it's you need somebody to help you. So ask a question, Greg. So how does one find a good coach? Now, we talked about how to find maybe a peer group. How do you find a good coach?
So let's talk about, let me come back to the peer group. The best way to find a peer group is to look for them, which most people aren't even doing. All right. Vistage is a place to start. But if you have if you're in a business where there's a trade association, reach out to them. If you're part of ABCs believe in peer groups. They're very much in favor of peer groups. So there's lots of associations and trade organizations. In terms of finding a good coach, I think the thing to do is go to the International Coaching Federation, which I believe is like coachingfederation.org or something like that, but International Coaching Federation, and get a credentialed coach, someone that's been trained and has credentials. But if they're telling you what to do, they're not coaching, they're consulting.
Okay. So what is what's the name of that association again? I want people to hear what it is.
I'll start looking it up. It's the International Coaching Federation.
Okay. And they'll give them a list of all their coaches, or how do they can say,
there's a list. Yeah, and it's coachingfederation.org. Coachingfederation.org. And they're all credentialed coaches listed there. And there's different levels. There's ACC, PCC, MCC. They're all properly trained. Some have more experience than others, but they're all properly trained. And most of them will do a free coaching call with you to find out if there's a fit. And most of them, if they don't think there's a fit, they'll tell you so.
Okay.
And if you're not getting results after 3 sessions, find somebody else.
Okay.
If you're in a peer group and you're not getting results, find another one.
Okay. So they can go there. There's a list of coaches and they can pick one and go from there. Okay, cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good suggestion. Now, so the ideal person, you have a peer group that you like, sort of like finding a church. I mean, maybe a bad analogy, but
it's a really good analogy. Yes.
Finding people that have similar beliefs, similar kind of thing, you can agree with them, and it's their values match your values. Just put it that way.
So I think for a peer group to be effective, the people that in it have to have good character. They have to be fundamentally honest. And they have to be willing to be vulnerable. Okay. I don't think it's important that they all agree and they're all stuck in the same way. Mm-hmm. For instance, I have a peer group where I have 2 contractors that both do $30 million a year in business, and their EBITDA is the same, and they're really good. Okay, so they're both 20 money. One of them does almost 100% new construction. One of them does almost 100% re-roof.
Wow.
They're completely different as to how do they go to market. Their staffing is different because the guy that does re-roof has more salespeople. The guy that does the new construction has far less staff, but he also has to work for a lower margin. So they still find ways to help each other. They still find ways to help each other. So I don't care if people that in the group like each other. I just want them to respect each other. Most of these people become really good friends.
What's the difference between like and respect, Greg?
Well, like means that if you're going to be in their town, you're going to want to go out to dinner with them. You might want your wife to meet their wife. Okay. Respect means that, okay, he looks at the world completely different than me, but he clearly is successful. He still has some of the same core values in terms of around honesty and character, integrity. But you know what? He's a golfer. I'm a fisher. There's too many ways that we're not the same for him to be my friend. but that doesn't mean that I cannot be in a group with him and get value out of it.
Okay. What does a typical peer group cost, or is there such a thing?
So I do not have access to the Vistage fee schedule. I'm not a chair, but in Vistage, now this is good. This is going to put a whole bunch of people up, but it's probably $20,000 a year.
Okay.
And people are going to go, $20,000 a year. Yeah. And it's cheap. Because if you do the things that you're being asked and led to do, it will pay for itself over and over and over. In my peer groups, we have a membership fee. We have some shared expenses. They pay my way to the meetings. I figure a peer group probably costs somebody $15,000 a year. But I know somebody in the very first meeting discovered they needed to change their insurance policies, and they saved $100,000 a year. So they're saving $100,000 a year because they found out that they had the wrong insurance carrier.
Well, that's pretty good ROI for sure.
That's a pretty good ROI.
So let's say your peer group's 15 to 20, and then, in your experience, what does coaching cost?
If you're not paying at least $300 an hour for a coach, you're not paying enough.
Okay.
I know people that are paying $1,500. Hang on, I'll do the math because it's such a big number. Okay. He's paying $2,500 an hour.
Whoa.
And his comment is, best money I ever spent. And he renewed for another year.
Wow.
Okay. Yes. But if you knew how much money he was making, and if you knew the things he made changes to in his business because of the coaching, he would tell you it's a bargain.
Right. Well, sometimes, now this is really important, Greg, because a lot of times contractors have no problem buying a new tractor or being a new building. Hard assets, they totally understand. Maybe even software, they understand. When it comes to getting them to spend money on peer groups or coaching, sometimes people just don't get the value. How can we convince them it's a good idea?
I don't try to convince them. So this is important. I don't try to convince anybody to join a group. If somebody says to me, why should I be a member of this group? They're immediately disqualified. If they do not instantly understand they're going to get massive value from this and that they need that value, they're not going to be a fit. But they're willing to invest in equipment. They're willing to invest in this. They need to invest in themselves. That's the way they need to look at this. They need to get rid of the fixed mindset that's keeping them stuck and develop a growth mindset that opens up all sorts of possibilities.
Right. Well, the most important person in any business is the ones that owns it, because they drive all the value structures, right?
Not only that, but the biggest impediment, the biggest pinch point in every organization is the boss. The boss is always the pinch point. He or she is always the one that's holding the company back because he thinks he has to do this, that nobody else can do this, or he thinks that this has to be a certain way, and it doesn't.
Okay.
Fixed mindsets.
This is incredibly valuable, Greg. So if people want to know more about you or your coaching or your peer groups, how do they get in touch with you?
So if they're commercial roofing contractors, I'll be glad to try to talk with them. Hayne, Hayne, you can see it back there, Hayne Coaching Group.com, and they can click on a link and schedule a call with me.
Okay. Now, what about those poor souls listening to this going, but I'm not a roofing contractor,
So then try Vistage, Vistage.com. Okay. Vistage is a great organization.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Well, this has been insightful. If you're listening to this is amazing advice. I've been coaching for 50 years. This is like pretty valuable. If you don't have a coach and you're not a member of a peer group, your business is not running the way it should. I can clearly say that. It could run better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Greg, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.